Hello everyone and welcome back to Backlot Banter. My name is Tucker Hazel. Today I'm joined by my back boy, Tanner Dykstra, and today we're here to talk about Bad Boys Ride or Die, the fourth film in the Bad Boys series. It's not a cinematic universe. I was going to say that I've become so cinematic universe pilled.
That's right.
Whenever I see a series,
We
I'm like,
will
it's a
get
cinematic
to
universe.
the Bad Boys cinematic universe at some
God.
point. We'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get the Armando spin-off movie, prequel movie.
Reggie spinoff.
But we have seen Bad Boys Ride or Die, and we would love to talk to you about it. So if you would like to talk to us about this movie or any of the other summer movies, you can join our Discord. You can leave comments in the below the video down there in the little wacky box.
That's typically where the comment section is.
Yeah, unless I moved, could have migrated.
Hey.
And also like the video, subscribe to the channel, all that stuff. Tanner,
Yeah.
Bad Boys Ride or Die. It's here. You have watched all the Bad Boys movies leading up in preparation.
recently,
How are you
yes.
feeling about the fourth film in this series?
Tucker, we are in such an era of getting these legacy sequels as they kind of were. This is a sequel to the legacy sequel, I guess, in Bad Boys.
It's the
for
Halloween
Life.
Ends.
Yes.
No, Kills. Sorry, Kills.
yes,
It's
that's
Halloween
right.
Kills of the Bad Boys franchise.
Yeah, the Scream 6, if you will.
Yes.
But anyway, we're in such an era where, you expect these to be bad. But I was actually pleasantly surprised by Bad Boys for Life, and I would say that Bad Boys Ride or Die is better. It is currently my second favorite Bad Boys film in the
cool.
series. I really enjoyed this. I think it avoids a lot of the traps that these kind of things can fall into, these modern retellings of things that really peaked in the 90s and early 2000s. And I think it's really solid across the board. I don't know where they go from here, but I'm excited to see them try, I guess.
Yeah, I guess they certainly might. But I also think that we're getting to the point where it's not like this one feels like it's running out of juice. This is like a Dial of Destiny type situation where it's like, we need to let this stop. Let the series rest. Because this feels like stepping back in time in an interesting way of the directors, Bilal Falal and Adel Arbi are kind of riffing on what the style, mid-2000s style that Michael Bay really popularized, but they're certainly adding their own spin on it. And the greatest part is that Martin Lawrence and Will Smith have not lost a beat. They've not missed a beat. They just keep on going. They've been doing this for well over 20 years.
Yes.
And it just feels like this could have come out in 2011 or something like that, and in a great way. And so I totally agree. I think this is a very, very good movie. I think I have some pretty significant complaints about it that keep it from being like a top tier action movie. But it's a great movie, and it's been said many times on the internet in the last few days as the reviews of this movie are coming out. But there's no way Batgirl was bad. There's no way that movie was bad. The directors here have just such an interesting vision in the moments where it's able to really, really come through. I think that is, unfortunately, in less moments than I would have wanted, but this is a very good movie.
I mean, Tucker, you mentioned Will and Martin there, so let's talk about them. The titular Bad Boys, as they are called in this film by
Mike and Marcus.
Mike Lowry, Marcus Burnett. They're the Bad Boys. So, you say they haven't missed a beat, but I think this series has done a good job of, kind of keeping up with the age of the stars. Both of these guys are 60 or pushing 60, or the series does a good job of making them human. The first Bad Boys 1, Bad Boys 2 makes them super heroic. They can't get hurt. They're doing all sorts of crazy stunts. And then in Bad Boys for Life and then Bad Boys Ride or Die, we're introducing health problems and a panic attack. There's a realistic depiction of a panic attack in Bad Boys Ride or Die.
I guess there is.
I'm not sure. I'm sure it's not very realistic, but we're taking a lot of steps to both show their age, show their vulnerability, show their humanity, and I think that pays off here. And might I add, I really like the flipping of the dynamic here in Bad Boys Ride or Die, because in the preceding Bad Boys films, Martin Lawrence, Marcus Burnett has always been I'm too scared to go into stuff. I don't want to do all this. Mike, you're crazy. I don't want you're the wrecking ball through all this stuff. And we flip that here. Marcus Burnett, in a scene that I do want to talk about, basically has a post death experience, near-death experience revelation where he believes that he cannot die, and also comes to terms with his life and past lives and reincarnation. It's a crazy arc that they give Marcus in this film. It's absolutely insane. And by that nature, and of course Will Smith's character getting married, settling down a little bit. He's been this like playboy bachelor character for the entire series. By giving those characters both those moments, both those like seeds of where their arc kicks off, we flip the dynamic and makes it very, very fresh going into Bad Boys Ride or Die. The dynamic is completely flipped.
Yeah, I think the character progression of this movie is where it's, I think maybe in my mind, slightly more serious tone than the other ones pays off. Because, especially I think for Mike, giving him a little bit more of a grounded, fleshed out perspective on the world helps to humanize his character quite a bit. He's always been the one where they tried to put the character arc on of like trying to build a relationship, trying to settle down a little bit.
It's basically in every Bad Boys movie.
They've been doing that over and over. Yeah, exactly. But they've done it over and over again. But this time, both the giving him a more permanent relationship in that he gets married to a new character I don't think we've seen before.
No, yeah, she is new.
At the very beginning of this movie, that combines with his panic attacks that he's developing to give him a higher sense of stakes in that he no longer wants to run and gun and jump into battle as headstrongly. I don't know if that's necessarily wrong, but you get what I'm saying. Because he has something to lose in the way that he didn't really necessarily before. And also, he gets the parenting element a little bit stronger. Marcus has always been the one with the family element. We've seen his sister and his wife and his children across the course of the other movies. But bringing back Armando in a role that is much more... It's much closer to a father and son dynamic. And they actually really play that up of trying to get Marcus to call him Mike's son and Mike calling him his son multiple times. It definitely gives him a little bit more emotional weight. And it does mean that this movie has a more serious tone. I think that in the moments where it's trying to do a lot more of, no, this is about family. This is about what we can lose. It's about the risks and the stakes of all that. And that also plays into a lot of the other side characters who have children or spouses or girlfriends or boyfriends. I think that is a very interesting twist on the Bad Boys formula that I think works for this movie in terms of feeling fresh. But I also do think that this movie's more serious tone, especially in the middle, I think contributes to it losing a little bit of energy. I think that this movie's too long. Okay. It is 2 hours and 10 minutes.
Is it? No, it's just under 2 hours, isn't it?
Is it not?
Yeah, I think it's just under 2.
Okay, I could be wrong with that. Well, it felt like 2 hours and 10 minutes. And I think that especially that is because of the middle chunk of the movie where I think a lot of the editing flashiness kind of disappears for 30, 40 minutes, something like that. I mean, that's not to say there aren't good moments of comedy in there, but after the plane crash sequence, they're on the run for a while. And that's a much slower sequence. We're not jumping between side stories as much when that's happening. And it kind of feels a little bit repetitive to me. But I think that serious tone, again, is a pro and a con here. I think it helps it stand out. But I also think this movie is just less like aggressively funny and action packed as the other ones. It's still there, but I felt like some energy was missing in this one.
Sure, no, I mean that for me, Bad Boys 2 is like the absolute peak that this thing can be. I mean, that's the one that is actually like 2 hours and 10 minutes long. And is just packed full of zany, unbelievable moments of our characters getting into crazy comedic situations, and then also the most insane, bone-rattling action you've ever seen. And this one, I mean, it's much more akin to something like Bad Boys for Life, where we're taking a bit more of a not super over-the-top, audacious, Michael Bay-minded thing to pacing a movie out.
And that is fine, and
totally
I do think that helps it stand apart. I do think it still, as we'll get into the editing and the action, where it still retains some of that energy.
For sure.
I think that maybe the element where I think that works the least is in that there are a lot of side characters in this movie.
Yeah.
And they tried to give almost all of them some sort of arc or redemption or side storyline, and I think it can bog down the film a little bit, and to the point where we're wrapping up at the end and they're doing like not a Five Nights at Freddy's, Jesus Christ, a Fast and Furious style
the barbecue
thing, and there's all these characters around, and I'm like, I like a good chunk of these characters, but Mike and Marcus are really the only really well developed ones.
I mean, yeah, they're the ones that have been in all
some
the
of the
movies.
other side stories, I'm like, this. I think it could have been trimmed down, maybe cut the runtime a little bit and focus a little more on.
I have
a
are you talking about like the Vanessa Hudgens, Alexander Ludwig characters? Are you talking
them?
about Yeah,
They're fine, but ultimately they don't add too much. And then there's also the captain's daughter and her daughter.
Yes,
and
yes,
they are
yes.
they are really not very
lady
interesting.
Kim, I think Kim from Better Call Saul. Yes, the captain's the captain's daughter, and then her granddaughter, who are sort of put into this film as basically like the daughter is basically like an added element of antagonism, and then the granddaughter is a hostage to be taken. But I think that pays off in a good way, where Armando, who killed Joe Pantoliano, the police captain, Captain Howard, saves the granddaughter, redeems himself in a certain way. So I think that they do have a story purpose to serve, and at worst, they are a sort of non-factor for me. So Tucker, you mentioned the plane crash and that sort of thing, the middle of the film. I didn't feel like it sagged for me at all. I feel like we moved pretty breezily from that really cool, helicopter crash into the lake to them on the run, which is sort of a low point for our characters to get a little more emotional with each other. And then we're like into the moment that they pushed hard in the trailers, the purebred white boy moment with the rednecks. And then that that gives us like a country cover of the Bad Boys song, which is really fun. Right. I really like that. And then we're into like them going back to the city, meeting up with Tiffany Haddish. There's another shootout. DJ Khaled is there again. He gets killed in he
sure is, isn't he?
He gets killed in a crazy way. And this is what I really like about this film too. I say that it like stays true to the blood of the Bad Boys series, where Bad Boys 1 and Bad Boys 2 are sort of like really enjoyable and over the top in this way that doesn't necessarily seem conscious or deliberate. And this one, I think, does deliberately make those choices to be crazy, do some things that will be clipped on Twitter and be like, wow, look how crazy this thing was. But it doesn't feel like sweaty or try hard when they're doing that. Like when they double, triple kill DJ Khaled, I'm like, this is hilarious. I love this. It doesn't feel like they're like, and this is a viral moment right here.
Sure. No. This film feels very genuine. And my issues maybe with the pacing or a little bit of the tone aside, it does feel like they had an idea for this movie. It wasn't just slapped together for no reason. There's a lot of quality here. And I really want to get into where I think the biggest strength of this movie is. Because we've been talking a little bit about how it differs from the other movies in terms of its tone and sort of character narrative. But it's really Bilal Fallah and Ed El Arbi bringing their directorial chops to this that completely changes the tone. And I saw Bad Boys for Life a couple years ago at this point, so it's not as clear to my mind how much of this was in that third movie. But in Bad Boys Ride or Die, I'd say about 10 to 15% of this movie, which is enough to make it impact, but not enough to make it feel like it's like a super core element of this film, is just the most insane shot composition and most insane camera movements and most insane editing choices you've ever seen in your entire life. And a lot of it comes in the opening 10-15 minutes of this movie. I know there's a good chunk of it near the end. But I think the opening is the best part of this movie. And I think that is why maybe I think it starts to sag a little bit, because I do think that a lot of the crazy editing choices and camera movements they're occasionally present, but they're, I think, significantly less prevalent in the middle section of this movie. But that opening part set the bar so high for me in terms of just really, really, really being inventive and clever and things I'd never even seen before. And I've seen a lot of movies where I was like, these guys know what they're doing. They are really, really selling it.
I have to shout out, this is not an original observation. This is something that was first pointed out by a good friend of the show, Joe Wainwright, who said that this is very much akin to Creed 3 in a way. It feels like it is a action blockbuster really influenced and, sort of directed by anime influences.
Sure,
And we're
that's
getting
a good
into
point.
an era of action filmmaking where anime seems to be a main influence, a main drawing point for our creators. So
Yeah,
yes, things like that opening crazy sequence for where of Marcus having that like come to Jesus moment, or I guess come to whatever moment, and then the camera rig that Will Smith is wearing for the FPS to straight up in his face camera thing has been going around on Twitter a whole lot. People are like,
it's really good.
These guys have the juice, and seeing that in action, sort of like just interspersed, really, really smoothly placed into this broader action sequence where we do have to cut around to a bunch of different characters. It feels very natural, feels very exciting. These guys do indeed have the juice, as it were.
Absolutely. And I think it's, for me, the camera movement and shot composition that's especially impressive. There is a couple of moments that really stand out to me. Number one is the moment where Marcus... He's like, oh, it's time. I'm running out of time. And he looks down at his watch, and the camera is behind a watch face looking up at his nose. And it's just so clever. I'm like, I've never seen anything like that before. And it instantly stands out. And then there's this moment when he has the heart attack where he falls and sort of transitions through the floor.
He falls through the floor into the ocean. And then we get this,
God, it's so
beautiful shot of, him at the, towards the bottom of the ocean, swimming toward in this beam of light. I was like, Christ alive, this is a Bad Boy. Did anyone want to tell these guys this is just a Bad Boys? This is the fourth Bad Boys movie?
No, seriously, and that kind of really genuinely incredibly impressive shot composition is what buoys this movie up for me. Because again, I think that is not as prevalent as I would like in a lot of this movie.
Sure.
I think a lot of this movie is just pretty standard shot composition, but it's there enough for me to be like, these guys know what they're doing. I think it's just they're being put into the context of a studio blockbuster movie where you can't do that all the time.
Yeah.
Where I would want them to do it all the time.
Even
I do think that the place where they're able to have a really good middle ground is in the action sequences where the camera is doing incredible movements that where it's like swinging back and forth going through the air. I'm like, wow.
Rotating around rooms. I wanted to bring up the fight in the crashing Chinook helicopter, where that would be the highlight of any other fucking Fast and Furious movie or whatever. The scene of the camera swinging into the cockpit and then back into the cargo hold and then flipping around as the helicopter does a spin or whatever.
Oh, and then Marcus goes on the ceiling.
Yeah, exactly.
God, that's such a good moment.
Yeah, and we're spinning around him as he's Spider-Man upside down, holding this pulley system in place. That would be the highlight of the last 3 Fast and Furious movies. And it ends up being one of the, maybe 3rd or 4th on the list of crazy looking action sequences in this movie alone.
So what else is on that list for you?
If we're talking about action sequences specifically, it would probably be number 2 or 3 probably.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, there's a couple. If you want to divide up that third act into halves, I would say you could probably do that.
Well, you can divide up that third act in a couple of ways. I think it's a very good action sequence. I love the fact that it's set in an abandoned alligator-themed amusement park. That's really funny.
Set up that the legend has it that there's a giant albino alligator still waiting around. It's ooh, who's gonna get chomped by that? Which one of the villains is gonna get chomped by that alligator?
Totally. And they do a lot of really cool drone footage in there, and the atmosphere of the vines and the tanks and the rotting wood, that's a really interesting place for a climactic action sequence. But I say that you can cut it up a bunch because this action sequence has 3 different endings.
Yes. So
it goes on a little too long.
Well, here's the thing. Because I think it works because we have essentially multiple villains here. I know we didn't talk about the plot at all, and the plot for me it gets a little what is the villain's plan? It's just vaguely police working with cartel framing the good guys.
Yeah, and in an unfortunate way, because I do think that the villain characters and the actors portraying them, who I don't blame the actors necessarily, but I think that they don't bring the kind of intimidation or character motivation, unique feel that I would feel balances out Mike and Marcus and their dynamic and the wacky editing and things. The villain plot of this movie is the most stock standard part of it by a significant fucking margin.
I want to briefly talk about the best moment in the entire film.
Okay.
And that is the payoff of one character, everyone's favorite Bad Boys character, Reggie. Reggie gets a moment, an action sequence unto himself, which I think will probably be on my list of action sequences in this film. Actually, with a classic like camera swinging around. But Reggie, who has been the butt of basically a joke every time he's on screen in the Bad Boys movie, fucking kicks ass in this movie. He's a Marine, and he gets to actually kill, as they say at the end of the film, 15 guys. And then hits the perfect coda for the end of that sequence. Straight because they're watching him on a security camera, and he just hits
a good dynamic.
He just hits the salute straight into the camera, and for half a second before he hits the salute, we do a wide body or a wide shot, and you can see his feet do like the military like splay out as he hits the salute. It's fucking hilarious. I love that moment so much. It easily got the biggest laugh in my theater. That moment.
Oh sure, yeah. Well, there was basically no one in my theater.
Oh sure.
So there wasn't really any community laughing. There was a couple of moments where me and my dad, we got a couple laughs out of us. But yeah, I think that's a great moment. I think the variety of the action set pieces here are really good. There aren't like any two that necessarily feel the same. I really love the locations that they choose for each of these. There's that home invasion sequence, there's the gator sequence, there's the helicopter sequence, there's the
classic car chases, and
there's a couple car chases. So I think that they nail the variety, they nail the character work. Martin Lawrence and Will Smith are still really funny. Will Smith can still absolutely dominate an action sequence. The cinematography and the camera work and the editing is really, really clever in a bunch of places. And so this is a good movie. I have a couple of qualms with the pacing and a little bit of the tone and certainly with the villains. But on the whole, it's like, if I'm going to be disappointed by any long-running series, action movie, legacy sequel, it's not going to be Bad Boys Ride or Die.
Yeah, that's fair.
The main act, I talk a mean game about like I have some issues with this, but like this is just so much better than so many of the big budget action movies we've been seeing.
100%.
There's passion in it. The characters still have a ton of charisma, and their dynamic is still just as electric as it has been for 20 years. And the fact that we're getting to watch the rise of the career of two really, really, really talented directors. Tanner, I don't know if you remember, but a couple years ago we were also wowed by them. And you can draw the parallels so clearly to those early episodes of Ms. Marvel.
The first two were the only two that they directed.
Is twisting and the graphics are coming up on screen, and I'm watching this. I'm like, oh yeah, those guys directed those first two episodes of Ms. Marvel, which are some of the best MCU in the last few years.
Talk on the street is that they're being eyed to direct Spider-Man 4.
Don't even do it. Tanner?
Goosebumps.
Well, they're partially there.
Yeah,
but
sure, fair.
I felt the wave of goosebump come over me. That'd be crazy.
I would agree.
And also, they are definitely in the legacy of Sam Raimi.
Oh yeah.
Where Sam Raimi just likes to insert weird shots and crazy stuff. And I'm watching some of this stuff where you're getting the watch shot and we're getting them transition to the water. I'm like, yeah,
100%. Okay. I'm gonna go 7.8 for Bad Boys Ride or Die.
I'm gonna go a little bit lower. I'm gonna go 7.3.
Okay, right on.
Very good movie.
Very good movie. Really enjoyed it. Definitely go see it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, not a whole lot else to say. I think we'll probably get a third one, and we'll cap off like the 2020s trilogy of Bad Boys. Because it doesn't like we had been saying, it doesn't feel like they're slowing down really at all. But I think
not necessarily.
I think we get one more.
Yeah, if it makes 300.
For
think
sure,
it'd be good.
100. Even if I'd say even if it makes 250, we'll see a third one.
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
but. Everyone, thank you very much for watching our review of Bad Boys Ride or Die. Go watch this movie. If you haven't, go watch the other movies because they're all. This is a 4-movie good movie.
No
bad.
You know,
there are no bad Boys.
I was thinking no bad Boys, just like we said, no bad Rockies back in the day.
True. Yeah. It's true. But thank you again for everyone for watching. We will see you guys next time.